good afternoon or good morning. Good day, everybody. And welcome to this event. I am David Audretsch. I'm at the Institute of International Management at Indiana University. And today we're here with a panel of dynamic thought leaders from literally around the world. And our panel today are all experts on entrepreneurship, but especially maybe the neglected side of entrepreneurship, which is about emotions, the role that emotions play in entrepreneurship, and then what can entrepreneurs, training programs, policy do to equip entrepreneurs with the requisite skills that that'll help them to flourish. I don't want to do the talking. I want them to do the talking. But let me introduce our dynamic panel of thought leaders from around the world. And first, we have Dr. Amanda Williamson, who is a lecturer in innovation and strategy at the Waikato Management School at the University of Waikato. Her focus or specialty is entrepreneurship, and in particular, the health of entrepreneurs and the emotional health. And a strange, maybe somebody can ask this during the discussion time, a strange kind of second interest is artificial intelligence and what artificial intelligence has to do with emotions. We look forward to Amanda clarifying that for us. She before she got to the university, she worked at the New Zealand Center for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprise Research. She held a visiting research position in Chile. She speaks fluent Spanish, and she earned her PhD in psychology at the Institute of Work Psychology in the United Kingdom. So we're an international panel, and she is an international, I guess, a global scholar. She teaches. She's an excellent teacher, and she was awarded the 2019 Divisional Teaching Excellence Award. And I think that kind of speaks to the emphasis that she puts on the emotional connection with people, which is a big part of teaching. Most recently, or fairly recently, she published, I think, what'll be a seminal article titled "Let's Focus on Let's Focus on Solutions to Entrepreneurial Ill-Being: Recovery Interventions to Enhance Entrepreneurial Well-Being," in what most people think is the premier journal in entrepreneurship theory and practice. And that article it just came out maybe 4 or 5 months ago, right, Amanda?
Yeah, that's right.
A little longer. So we're very happy to have her with us. Our second panelist is Maha Aly, who is an entrepreneurial emotional educational coach and emotional therapist. She is her PhD from the University of Erfurt focuses on entrepreneurial psychology. She brings 15 years of diversified hands-on experience, including professional and academic specialty in the field of customer centricity. That sounds like emotional intelligence, or that sounds like artificial intelligence, but we'll let her explain that. In the digital creation of emotional connection in various technology-based industries like e-banking, telecom, e-commerce, as well as professional certifications and practical experience in various schools of coaching, psychoanalysis, and emotional therapy, which she's been doing since 2014. She's been training and consulting nascent entrepreneurs since 2015, about 6 years, in a broad spectrum of countries spanning from Egypt, Germany, where she lives and works now, the United Arab Emirates, and the United Kingdom. she started her own business, which was a business to manufacture and sell bridal dresses in Egypt. And I think that went international. And from her experience as an entrepreneur and from running her small business, she doesn't talk about it, but she earned her first million as an entrepreneur. She then got an MBA to understand what it was she was doing. And this kind of supplemented her practical administration that taught her business administration isn't just operational knowledge, but also understanding human emotions during the venture creation process. And according to Maha, emotional intelligence is the new smart. And then we come to our third panelist, who's the closest to me physically, geographically, in Washington, D.C., which is Kaitlin Capobianco. And she is with Halcyon is the way I say it, but she'll probably say it. Do you want to credit? Is that right, Kaitlin? Halcyon?
Halcyon. You're very close.
Yeah, that was my next guess, which is a consulting firm in Washington, D.C. Kaitlin is committed to supporting the learning, growth, and development of individuals engaged in transformative life experiences. As the fellow community recruitment manager, she's responsible for recruiting top-tier early-stage social entrepreneurs and emerging artists to Halcyon's programs. In addition, she supports, connects, and manages the community of fellows, both during the programs and after. Before she joined Halcyon, Kaitlin spent a decade working in higher education, most recently serving as the Assistant Director of Academic Advising in the Washington, D.C. team lead at the Johns Hopkins University Carey Business School, which is located on the harbor of Baltimore. In 2019, Kaitlin made a career pivot to entrepreneurship, where she completed the Entrepreneurial Assistant Program of the state of New York. She's currently exploring the role of emotional intelligence, EI, compared to Amanda's AI, and related competencies such as creativity, empathy, and grit, and holistic wellness in entrepreneur education, development, and engagement. In her free time, it doesn't sound like she has a lot of free time, but I guess what she has, she can be found crisscrossing Washington, D.C. in search of live music and talking excitedly at length about art and architecture to her very patient friends. Kaitlin holds a master's degree in art history from the University of St. Andrews in Scotland, and a master's in education in higher education from the Penn State, the State University of Pennsylvania, Penn State, we call it, and also an executive education certificate in innovation, human-centered design from the Johns Hopkins University. So yeah, we have a very, I'd say distinguished, but somehow I think that they're way too young to be distinguished. We'll say dynamic, but certainly committed panel of thought leaders. They're changing the way we think about entrepreneurship and maybe even society. And in particular, with the message, emotions matter. So that's who they are, or we are. Let's turn first. What we're going to do is hear from Amanda roughly about her thoughts about her recent publication that I think is seminal in the field of entrepreneurship and probably beyond. And then we'll hear from Maha, who will tell us about the therapeutic approach that she is developing to bestow entrepreneurs with skills. And then Kaitlin and myself will interrogate them on what they've inspired in us. So Amanda, why don't you take it away?
Thank you so much. That was an incredible introduction. Wow. Well, I got into this research topic because with a bunch of co-authors, Martina Battisti, Jeffrey Gish, and Mike Leatherby, we did some research on sleep. And we found that when entrepreneurs slept better, they experienced better moods and emotions. And then from that, they went on to be more innovative. And this was a great piece of research. And we were excited about that. We thought, wow, okay, emotions really matter. And the more we dug into the literature, we found emotions matter for so many things. But it really started to bother me thinking, okay, it's one thing to say that emotions matter, but what can we do? What can we do if we say to entrepreneurs, oh, okay, emotions matter. If you can have more positive experiences, therefore you can be more innovative, it can help protect your health, you can engage in more expansive beliefs and behaviors. These are all fantastic things, but so what? What should I recommend someone to do? So with Jeffrey Gish, we started communicating and saying, okay, what are some solutions to this? Because a lot of people would love to experience more positive emotions, but it's not as easy as putting your mind into saying, you know what, I'm going to be more positive today. It just doesn't work like that, does it? So we started thinking about this in a more serious manner and thinking, okay, what are the problems that are preventing entrepreneurs from engaging in more positive emotions and less negative emotions? And then what might be some solutions? And so we joined with Uta Stefan, and we wrote this paper, as you mentioned, about what are some solutions? What can we do? Not just telling people to, hey, let's experience more positive emotions, let's try and put well-being front and center, but what can be done? And the big motivation behind this was to actually make an impact on moving the conversation from documenting the well-being amidst entrepreneurs or in entrepreneurial groups to actually doing something to change it. We know that entrepreneurship is extremely stressful. Any life event that involves uncertainty is one of life's biggest stresses in general. You know, moving house, change of jobs. I mean, that is what entrepreneurship is based on, uncertainty. So you can't avoid the stresses of entrepreneurship, but you can certainly change the way your body responds to it. And stress is important to consider because over the longer term, it has an impact on our body. And if we can experience more positive emotions and have a break from those stresses at work, we can often help remove some of those dangerous influences that stress has on our body over the longer term. So that was the motivation behind the research, was thinking, okay, we've got to find a solution. We can't just focus on the fact that emotions should be experienced. We should be good emotions, hopefully. We should be caring about our well-being. We needed to put in the, okay, so how do we do this? And that's been the hope with this paper. The hope has been that we can set forth the progress into this topic of, okay, let's do something. And what we hoped people would do, some of the suggestions we put in the paper include engaging in what we call the 3 R's of recovery. And we called them the 3 R's because we wanted it to be memorable. There you go. Is that? So, you know, one thing is just taking a respite from work. When entrepreneurs can engage in a break from the stresses, they can often engage in this thing called recovery, which means that you detach from stresses, and by engaging in respite, you can improve your well-being because you're giving yourself a break from those stresses. And this should positively influence your emotions and not just your emotions, your health more broadly as well. And then you've got reappraisal, which means you're taking these situations and you're thinking about them differently. And by thinking about them differently, hopefully you should be able to detach from those stresses through that process as well. So this might be in entrepreneurship, engaging in cognitive behavioral therapy, or even engaging in certain exercises to think differently about the stresses that are encountered. And the final one is regimen, which puts the two ideas together. So you're not just engaging in respite in an ad hoc manner, nor in reappraisal in an ad hoc manner. you're setting up structure throughout your day. And that structure hopefully makes recovery part of your daily practice. And that might be having a sleep schedule. So we often treat our beds as a entertainment center, these days. I mean, the bed should really just be used for two things. And if you're married, you're not getting the first one, so you should definitely just get the second one. I heard Chris Barnes say that once, and I thought that was a brilliant saying. So, and the idea about that would be, okay, well, that's what the bed's for. I'm not going to look at my screen in bed. I'm going to make sure I have time before I go to bed, that I don't look at screens. I don't have my coffee so many hours before I go to sleep. I create a ritual, just like we would with children, and set up this schedule around going to sleep. And that whole idea of regimen can be done for everything, including micro breaks, how we set up our day. Maybe a thing comes up on our computer and it locks our computer and we can no longer engage in our work. We have to take a break. We have to go spend some time in nature, or engage in positive thinking, or in a gratitude journal, or whatever it might be that's intertwined throughout our day. And the hope and the wish is that people will engage in this, and by engaging in these types of behaviors, well-being will be influenced. And we came to these conclusions by drawing on a vast body of literature on well-being. So that's really the paper in a nutshell.
Oh, well, thanks very much, Amanda, for that. Yeah, for that very succinct but very compelling synopsis of what I think is going to move the literature, change thinking, not just in entrepreneurship, but beyond. I can see poor Kaitlin keeps trying to unmute herself, but I'm not going to let her, because she wants to jump in and interrogate you and ask 1,000 questions. But I do too, by the way. So I may have to mute myself. But before I mute myself, let's invite our second panelist, Maha, to add on to what Kaitlin, or to what Amanda's.
So David, would you like that I go through the presentation or just comment on the paper first? I cannot hear you.
Go through your presentation.
Okay.
Then we'll talk about Amanda's paper later.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to present what actually we're doing and why we're doing it. And you will find out that it's very relevant to what Amanda mentioned. And this made me so happy. So I would like to start with providing emotional skills, okay, for entrepreneurial success. So let's start directly with a short video for Elon Musk. It's not long, but it will give you a very intensive view of why emotions are important.
Elon Musk, were you a little naive when you thought I can easily build an electric car and a rocket? I didn't think it would be easy. Like I said, I thought they would probably fail. But like creating a company is almost like having a child. So it's sort of like, how do you say your child should not have food? So once you have the company, you have to feed it and nurse it and take care of it, even if it ruins you. Yeah. But there was tough times in 2008, end of 2008. How did you get through that period of crisis? Yeah. We just break for a second. You want to wait a little while? Yeah, sure, if it was worth it. Sure, if it was worth it. It's everything. And I was borrowing money from friends to pay the rent. Well, I mean, Tesla really faced a severe threat of death due to the Model 3 production ramp. essentially the company was bleeding money like crazy, and just if we didn't solve these problems in a very short period of time, we would die, and it was extremely difficult to solve them.
How close to death did you come?
Within single-digit weeks.
22 hours a day? Like how many
I
hours?
was working, yeah, so 7 days a week, sleeping in the factory. I worked in the paint shop, journal assembly, body shop.
You ever worry about yourself imploding? Like it's just too much?
Absolutely. No one should put this many hours into work. This is not good. People should not work this hard. They should not do this. This is sort of very painful.
Painful in what sense?
It hurts my brain, my heart.
Tony Stark,
And the next video.
you had that third failure in a row. Did you think, I need to pack this in?
Never.
Why not?
I don't ever give up. I mean, I'd have to be dead or completely incapacitated. Starting a business, I'd say, number one is have a high pain threshold. That's it. There's a friend of mine who's got a good saying, which is that starting a company is like eating glass and staring into the abyss. Okay, that's generally what happens, because when you first start a company, there's lots of optimism and things are great, and then so happiness at first is high. Then you encounter all sorts of issues, and happiness will steadily decline, and then you'll go through a whole world of hurt. And then eventually, if you succeed, and in most cases you will not succeed, and Tesla almost didn't succeed, came very close to failure. Then if you succeed, then after a long time, you will finally get back to happiness.
So the same question that Amanda suggested or proposed, which is why emotional skills matter, or why emotions actually matter. So I would say that many entrepreneurs are giving up on their ideas because of emotional challenges. They are just unable to continue the journey. And many of them as well change their attitude when they are very successful or when they face huge failures. They cannot be as normal as they were. And due to this importance of how emotions are driving us, and according to the cognitive behavioral theory, which states that emotions and thoughts are impacting our behaviors and decisions, it's very important that we learn how to manage our emotions, which is the deepest layer behind thoughts, even behind thoughts. So if we think about our behaviors and decisions, there is a thought layer, and then behind the thought layer you will find feelings and emotional layer. And we have to learn how to manage our emotional challenges in order to create or make the right decisions and behave in a wise manner. So everyone would ask, okay, how to manage these emotions and how to make our decisions and control our behaviors wisely. And another question that might hit everyone's mind, why nobody is teaching anything about emotional education in our primary school or high school or at university. No one is teaching us how to deal with the very important driver that is driving our behaviors and decisions inside us. And in every entrepreneurial program, you will just listen to professors who are explaining and teaching marketing, finance, strategy, innovation, prototyping, but no one is addressing how to break the link between emotions and thoughts, emotions and behaviors. So you're acting from a wise spring, not from an ill spring. What's the story behind this, and why do I came to this emotional thing? That's what I'm going to tell you now. It's a simple, quick story. So when I finished my MBA in 2011, and I learned a lot in this program, I was coming from a computer science background, which made my mind look like zeros and ones. And then after the knowledge I gained from the MBA, I decided to start my business in fashion because I love fashion. Like it's a passion for me. So I said, okay, that will be a hybrid mode. I will be working in the IT field in the morning and then having my business aside. And I tried to apply everything I learned in my MBA journey, just how to start a business, how to finance it, what to do, how to conduct international business, because I designed everything in Egypt, but I used to bring everything from China. And then in this journey, no one actually taught me or told me that I will face a huge emotional roller coaster. No one told me how to handle even the emotions of handling difficult customers and how would I feel about myself. Then I thought I need to fix my emotions and fix my thoughts. So I started to get some coaching. And when I felt like, yeah, I'm doing well, then I got certified as a life coach to help others, not just help myself. And in 2014, I made my first million from the business. And I thought, yeah, the struggles are less because I learned how to manage my thoughts and improved the connection to my emotions. But then there is a big lack of understanding my emotions that was still there, and I had to address it. So I started to take some emotional therapy sessions, and then I became certified emotional therapist because I like it so much, and I wanted to help younger entrepreneurs. And this is what I did in Microsoft Egypt. I was selected as one of the entrepreneurship and employability mentors in 2 years program to help undergraduates and fresh graduates, those who would like to start their businesses. At that point of time, I was able to help them with the coaching, with the business coaching, with the life coaching, with the thought coaching, and the emotional therapist side, or the emotional therapy side. And why was that important? Because most of the problems that they bring to the table in the coaching sessions were basically emotional, not as much as business issues. At the meantime, I was a customer experience and user experience lead in a telecom operator. And this also let me work with emotions the whole day. So in the morning, I'm working with emotions of the customers and users in the design for IT or for digital channels. And at night, I'm working with handling emotions and coaching sessions with entrepreneurs. In 2017, I came here to Germany to start my PhD, and I started coaching as well entrepreneurs in different cities in Germany and also in different countries. But for the entrepreneurs I met here, most of the challenges, again, they don't mention the business challenges as much as the emotional ones. And when they talk about the business challenges, if you dig deeper in the session, you will find that it has an emotional root. So I started to say, like, yeah, emotional challenges are emerging all the way. And this actually took my PhD journey from UX design and entrepreneurship into pure entrepreneurial psychology focus. In 2020, I met David. I was so lucky and happy to meet him. And we decided to start the second startup, which is the one that we are driving now for addressing the emotional challenges of entrepreneurs. Anyone who studied entrepreneurship or knows about entrepreneurship definitely knows this J curve, which addresses the main phases of entrepreneurship, okay? And the thing that we are trying to extend to this J curve is the emotional challenges that happened or happens during the journey of the different stages of entrepreneurship. I just have to remove this so you can read the text. Yeah. This curve actually is the product of 6 years and more of coaching and helping entrepreneurs, discovering how difficult the journey, the entrepreneurial journey is for them, emotionally more than business, because they are experiencing hard time facing and fighting their internal struggles with their own inner voice of huge excitement, and then loss of work-life balance, and then feeling I'm not good enough. The more I do, I'm not enough. I should be more perfect. People start to get somehow aggressive when they feel that they are going to the failure phase, more guilt, more suicidal thoughts, sometimes shame because of the society that they live in. And here culture is probing in, because culture is impacting how entrepreneurs are behaving and feeling so much. In a country where people are pointing to others if they fail, like in Germany, and this is what Germans say: if I fail, everyone would look at me and say, ha ha ha, you saw, we told you shouldn't have started such a business, just go for a secure job. So this is very typical here. And then, yeah, you go through the whole curve of people who are extremely afraid of success, of having money, people who cannot manage uncertainty, and they don't know that it's a human need. Uncertainty is a human need. They don't know how to reframe it. They believe it's not accommodating to their culture, where security is number one, and so on and so forth. You can reach until personality disorders, depression, and suicidal thoughts. This is another graph or another curve that can tell you how entrepreneurs are facing uninformed optimism at the beginning, and then informed pessimism when they go to the death valley, informed optimism again, and then even in the completion, they are not free of the emotional roller coaster. This is another self-talk associated with the emotions that is happening inside their psyche, inside everyone's psyche, actually. When they say, yes, at the beginning, I'm excited, oh, it's working, or I was wrong, I suck, everything I do is wrong. And these actually are having a big roots in childhood traumas. And this is actually where we try to work with every entrepreneurs on the old traumas, where they started to feel I'm not good enough, or I suck, or they speak bad to themselves. Now comes the numbers, or come the numbers that should talk and express how emotions are so important in the entrepreneurial journey. 90% of the new startups fail due to building something nobody wants. This is like very normal in business. But 30% out of the 90%, which is a big portion, that's not a small percentage, are leaving and failing the entrepreneurial journey or entrepreneurial endeavor because of emotional problems. 13% because founders lost the focus. Maybe they experience some sort of disorder like ADHD and they don't know it, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. 9% lost passion. 8% of the founders reach the burnout stage, which is extreme stress, and the level of cortisol in their blood is extremely high. They cannot take it anymore. So we are addressing here the importance of emotional health for entrepreneurial success, because managing emotions is extremely important for maintaining the hope, maintaining the motivation, teaching them how to reframe uncertainty and believe that it's part of the human need, managing the information problem, enabling them to feel balanced, and to be able to take the right decisions and act wisely, not emotionally or out of imbalanced emotions. What we want to do is to translate the research, translate what the research is finding, and to combine what the research is providing into more practical therapeutical solution. This is exactly what you mentioned, Amanda, what to do about it if we want to address the wellness of entrepreneurs. That's why me and David started the Institute of Entrepreneurial Emotional Education and Research. Our mission is to empower the next generation of entrepreneurs by equipping them with the emotional skills that they need to thrive in their entrepreneurial journeys that is full of emotional problems and ups and downs, and yeah, you can name it. We are the owners or the co-founders, and we are trying to help entrepreneurs. We did our first track record in Lebanon, in Beirut. 10 days of intensive one-to-one sessions. That's one of our services. So we're providing B2G, business to government, where we want to change the cultural aspects that and the emotional layer under this cultural values that are not driving societies and cities to be more entrepreneurial, like fear of failure or uncertainty avoidance, for example. Second service is the B2B. We are trying to help incubators and accelerators or institutes that are interested to help entrepreneurs and to embrace their journeys. We're trying to provide our services through some courses that I'm going to share now. B2C, like one-to-one sessions, and this is the experience we had in Beirut. It was very successful. We had a survey with very positive outcome results. And then train the trainer when we are mature enough in the journeys we are creating, to train more trainers to become like in our team offering the same service. What could be the courses that we are offering? And this is covering most of the problems that the entrepreneurs are facing. So you can find that we want to help people manage their emotions during high uncertainty, how to make decisions under a high uncertainty, how to ease the risk aversion and discomfort, how to reframe and accept fear of failure, fear of success, how to manage the great expectations that is the main cause of bipolarity or all bipolar problems. Building resilience and post-traumatic growth rather than post-traumatic disorders. One of the main requirements that are or required ideas or concepts that are coming from Beirut entrepreneurs, letting go of control and perfectionism. Most of them are suffering severely from control and perfectionism. It always comes or emerges to my face. Managing excess worry, how to build strong support system around them, teaching them how to manage the feeling of overwhelmed, trapped, how to stop overdoing, especially for females, those who are wives and mothers, and they are facing this and experiencing this type of being, oh, I'm so overwhelmed and I'm unable to manage my time and my responsibilities, as well as shame and guilt, self-sabotage. What are the patterns and how to get out of these patterns and to handle yourself, change your inner voice, how to identify when you are really aggressive, how to build assertive networking instead of being aggressive, understanding employees and how to deal with them, how to build your charisma, how to sustain success instead of knocking it down because you're afraid to be successful, how to handle and mitigate the risk of egocentricity, which is a very big topic as well for successful entrepreneurs, how to handle ADHD, That's also a big topic in entrepreneurship. Then comes the very advanced level of addictions and voids, how to manage the bottled fear and shock, anger, rejection model. How to be careful with your personality disorders that might surface. Like some people do not have severe disorders, but with success, or extreme failure, they start to show more of disorder symptoms. The dark triad, which is narcissism, psychopath, and Machiavellism. How to manage yourself before reaching severe symptoms of such disorders, an anxiety disorder, grandiosity and ego inflation. Life is falling apart when some people are so successful, they let go of their families, they are experiencing loneliness, and sometimes this pushes them towards depression and suicidal thoughts. So these are some of the testimonials from the entrepreneurs, just 2 entrepreneurs that we offered them one-to-one sessions to help them improve their business, but through the emotional challenges that we are trying to address in the sessions. Not the business, but it always starts with the business. The good thing that we are able to understand their business problems. So, but we don't provide a full business coaching as well as far as we do the emotional therapy with them. Yeah, that's all about our story. What about your stories? And I want to thank you for listening to this long presentation.
Well, thanks very much, Maha. That's a lot to add on to what Amanda got going. And let's turn Kaitlin's sound on. And what do you think from all this, Kaitlin?
Yeah, I think it was wonderful. So thank you both for sharing your research. This is something that I think is so important. So at Halcyon, we are a nonprofit based in DC, and our hallmark programs are actually fellowships for early stage social entrepreneurs from around the world. And so part of the reason this is so important to us is we're always thinking about how do we support the venture, but also how do we support the entrepreneur, especially with social entrepreneurs. The change that they are having on this world, both from a social level and an environmental level, is incredibly important. So how do we make sure we support them? And when I was listening to both of your research, I think that you hit on really good points of how do we take theory into practice. And so kind of my first question for you guys is, one of the things I think we see a lot is how do we get buy-in? And I think the reason for that is similar when we look at the J curve. There is this misconception that burnout and engagement are 2 separate things, right? And so early on in the journey, entrepreneurs are excited and they're energized. But what we saw from the Elon Musk video is that it's not burnout or engagement, it can be both, right? So how do we kind of start working with entrepreneurs from early on when they are energized and they don't mind working, 20-hour days, to say, no, like you do need to think about your emotions, you do need to think about your well-being, so that you are not burning yourself out and that you're able to kind of persist going forward. So would love kind of feedback that you had through your research about gaining buy-in for entrepreneurs to recognize the importance of this.
What's the answer, Amanda, Maha?
Oh, it's a great question.
Yeah, that's right.
This is the problem. Did you want to go first?
I would think that awareness is very important. If we spread awareness, we let people know that this will happen to you, and you have to pay attention to what could happen to you and learn how to mitigate, how to manage. Then this is step number 1. It's like when you go to a doctor and then he tells you, okay, we're going to do a surgery. After the surgery, this part is going to be swelled and it's going to be red. And you're going to have to take some anti-inflammatory to experience 5 or 4 days of huge pain, and then you will be fine. So giving this information or pre-preparing actually, or pre-telling them that this could happen to you. We are trying to educate you emotionally. Then when you experience this, you know what to do. This could be one of the solutions. Amanda, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that people tend to discount their mental health, particularly people in high pressured business environments where surviving the next week is what's important. So I think there are really two ways to tackle it that can make it resonate with people who are in business. I think the first is not talking about mental health. It's actually shifting, well, both of them is not talking about mental health. It's shifting the conversation to be about your allostatic load. That means the impact that stress has on your body, even if you don't know you're experiencing it, and talking about the impact that will have over the longer term, and showing studies and maybe even giving people feedback on their physical health as they go through their venture experience. And I think the second one is adopting more of an athlete kind of perspective. You know, if you tell an athlete that they need to sleep and they need to be careful of their emotions and they need to manage stress so they can have high performance, that resonates. We know why that's important. So I think that's a strategy to take with entrepreneurs as well. It's saying, hey, you're an athlete. This is not a sprint. Yes, you need to do great now, but you need to do great in a year, particularly if you want to have impact. So how can you do that? Let's treat you like an athlete. Let's make sure you're taking care of yourself, doing things that are obvious, but it's about making the long term the important thing as well. So you can keep doing what you're doing. You can have that huge impact on the world in 2 years from now, not just for the next 6 months.
Funny you say that, Amanda, because none of you know this about me, but decades ago, I used to run marathons. And guess what happened to my first marathon? I thought I'd show them who was the fastest. And you know what I learned, Amanda? It's a long race.
Life is a long race in general, isn't it?
I like your perspective so much. Yeah, I support what you're saying because it is really like an athlete. It's a human centered job. Like you are the entrepreneur, you are leading the entrepreneurial journey, and you are leading people and ideas. And if you don't take care of yourself and of the people you are leading, then you might lose the race in the first round. That's true.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I really like as far as the athlete that resonates with me, that is that idea that it kind of forces us to then make the business case for emotional intelligence of entrepreneurs, right? So if you're an athlete, you know how you are connected to the goal. And I think sometimes this kind of strange is the wrong word, but we see this a lot, especially in early stage entrepreneurs, the identity kind of gets enmeshed between the business and the self. And so it's this idea of the business is doing very poorly and I'm worried about making payroll, as so many early entrepreneurs are, I can't be having a good day, right? So it's like, how do we help to separate the identity that you can be having a bad day, or you can be having a good day, even if the business is having a bad day, and vice versa. And that by taking care of yourself, you're going to actually be, we know, tied to more positive business outcomes in the long run. The business is going to have fewer and fewer bad days.
Exactly. Absolutely.
You know, Kaitlin, you work, it sounds like primarily with, you have an orientation to social entrepreneurs. Is it different for social entrepreneurs?
Is that a question for me or from the research?
Well, you're the
I
well,
can give my unsupported research opinion. I always am happy to give my opinion. So I will say is I do not have research to back this up, but from my just kind of background opinion, I think that when you're working with a social entrepreneur, mission is such an incredible part of what they're doing. And this can really drive them. And I think that there are ways that this can relate to emotions if they can harness in ways such as if they can recognize the importance of emotions, they can look at, well, if I'm frustrated about this social situation, how do I harness this frustration to kind of make the change? I think the flip side of the coin is that there is a lot of pressure that they put on themselves because it's not just about them, it's not just about their family, it's not just about their business, it's about this larger mission and it's about this larger impact. And so I think creating balance is hard for any entrepreneur, but I do feel like in social entrepreneurs, it's even harder for them to kind of put their own oxygen mask on and take care of themselves, because they feel like when they take the time to take care of themselves, it takes time away from the mission. And it's about helping them understand that by taking care of yourself, you're actually able to give more to the mission and you're able to scale that even more, but kind of helping them to see that disconnect. But like I said, not supported by research as far as I know, but that's just kind of my own opinion from what I've seen in my work.
There is a very important point that you mentioned, Kaitlin, which is the emotional intelligence of entrepreneurs. I would like to highlight that there are two things that entrepreneurs need to take care of. Emotional fitness, their own emotional fitness, so they care about their resilience and how they understand, listen to their emotions and manage it, so they keep their well-being. And emotional intelligence, that they are able to understand their emotions and other people's emotions. And with this type of intelligence, you are able to lead people and to make them do what you want as a company leader. You're able to create the environment, the culture, understand people, understand how to employ them, how to assign them the right tasks that they fit their personality, how to manage their stresses, and you are able to lead also their emotional success, the employees, I mean. So an entrepreneur needs both emotional fitness and emotional intelligence in this context.
Let me ask all three of you, what are the, it's what Amanda started with. And I think you have an article with Dean Shepard, Amanda, right? Where you review a lot of the, that article, right? Where they review a lot of the studies of, I think of the emotional trauma from failure, right? And
I would love to have an article with Dean Shepard. It's on my life's list of things to do, but no, I do not.
maybe I'm a fortune teller then. But you certainly, you certainly know that literature. By the way, it seems to me there aren't any studies focusing on the context of social entrepreneurship. From just when Kaitlin said she doesn't know the research, I don't think I know research that focuses. It all focuses on entrepreneurs. But anyway, what do you think? You mentioned a few kind of therapeutic steps, Amanda, in your talk. But what do you think has to change to enhance the emotional health of entrepreneurs?
What has to change to enhance the emotional health? A lot. I think often we see entrepreneurs as individuals who create profit, who create jobs, and we often don't see them as humans who are capable of suffering, capable of ill health, as people. So I think that we've got a certain image of entrepreneurs as these heroes who do not need breaks. It's funny having that video of Elon Musk earlier, because Elon Musk will often say, sleep is for the weak. When I was starting up my business, I'd sleep in a bean chair beside my desk, and that's a totally accepted image of the entrepreneur. So I think we need to change that image on many levels, and then it's about normalizing the ways to recover at the individual level. But I think it's not just the individual level. And I also think we can't just apply the same rules that we've applied in other contexts to entrepreneurs. That entrepreneurship, by definition, has seasons of intensity. seasons where, you're not going to be able to take care of yourself. You have 2 weeks to get out a prototype and you won't sleep. And if we try and say every day you should be doing certain things, and if you don't, it's not an all or nothing approach. If you don't engage in that, then you're out, you're not doing it right. Well, that's just going to lose people along the way as well. I think it's about normalizing it, maybe making people feel good about taking the breaks from stress or from stressors that they need, and teaching them that it's not just, there is no failure in recovery. It's a process, and it can be done in many forms. There's not just a one size fits all. It can be about playing an instrument, just having that little time. It can be taking micro breaks at an individual level. It can be taking a walk. It can be looking at a plant and just breathing. There's not just one way to do it. For some people, telling them to meditate to recover is their form of hell on earth. And that's not going to help them. It's about recognizing these individual differences at the individual level as well.
I second you, Amanda. And one important point that you mentioned, and it reminded me of the race you mentioned, that they have to finish a prototype in 2 nights, otherwise they're losing. I think this ecosystem that is putting huge pressure on them, that makes them act so. If we remove this waiting for a seed fund, wanting to get this an investor with his money, and all this problematic and pressurizing ecosystem and activities, this is actually what is putting them under this huge stress. If we remove this from the equation, and then they start to do what they feel as, they create the passion, that they create what they are passionate about, they create what they want, and they don't wait for the money from anyone else. This should be the new mindset. You don't have to run after seed funds and investors, because this is going to crush you. You just need to do what you need to do in the timeline that is reasonable for your health and for your humanity, and then shoot a test with customers, test with small stuff, get an early feedback, go for a lean startup. Don't go for, yeah, I need to finish this now to get this investment or seed fund. This is the exhausting part.
I think that sounds really nice in an ideal world, and I absolutely agree. But I also think that entrepreneurship is not just high-tech entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, that you can have everyday entrepreneurs as well, people who are immigrants, and creating the venture isn't a question of, am I going to be the next Elon Musk? It's a question of, am I going to eat next week? So I do love that perspective, but I also am very cognizant of the fact that for some people it is life or death, that the venture is about them surviving, or in the case of social entrepreneurs, it's about them making a difference for a community that they are innately linked to and they care about so much. Often it's someone's relative has an issue and they're trying to address that. So I do love that, but I do wonder if it's realistic for the majority of entrepreneurs out there who are not spectacular and are not going for any big, amazing seed capital kind of investments along the way, perhaps.
Yeah, both of your points I think are so important, and what they make me think about is 2 things. One, how we as society are creating what an entrepreneur should be, which can be very problematic in many ways, and then how entrepreneurs are performing that role that's being created by society. But also to the point Amanda just made is, how are we as a society, are we putting the policy and the structure and the support into place so that entrepreneurs have what they need? So it's not becoming, I have to stay up for 48 hours or I'm not going to be able to feed my family, right? Or in the United States, we have a huge issue with health insurance, right? So I'm deciding to be an entrepreneur. I have to not get hurt and not get sick because I may or may not have health insurance or be able to afford health insurance. So like, what are we, I guess, as a society doing even beyond entrepreneurship ecosystems to making sure that the supports are in place so that entrepreneurs are able to have a profession that is healthy and for themselves?
Well, thanks very much. I think we are coming to the close of our hour, and this has just been a great discussion with three thought leaders from very different, certainly very different locations, three different continents, right? We span the world, but in the end, you all have a common message, which is emotions matter. And, you also emphasize, yeah, somehow it's been, at least in academia, I'm not so sure in more on the street, if it's really been hammered home that they matter. But we haven't really even begun to talk about what do we do about the problems. And, if we're that way about COVID, we'd still be in the laboratory saying, wow, we think this COVID's a problem. Let's keep doing experiments. We'd be pretty far away from a vaccination in the arm, right? So let's, if I'd like to go around, I don't want to compel anybody to share any final thoughts or conclusions before we declare this theme, this topic solved. And we've now solved the problem of emotional skills. No, this is, somebody once said, discussions either resolve debates or start them. And I think this is clearly in the second category. It starts a debate and a whole agenda about taking emotions and the skills seriously. So concluding thoughts from all of you, any of you, some of you?
I have a very important question inspired from Amanda and Kaitlin's input. Do people or do entrepreneurs creating ventures out of necessity, and it's a matter of survival, do they actually suffer emotionally more than entrepreneurs who are doing tech or social or just doing something like they want to add value, but they are not doing it out of necessity? So that would be maybe a good research question that we may address in the future or try to discover. Do those people who are moving from necessity suffer more, or those who are under the stress of venture capital ecosystem suffer more? Which one are? I don't know how to measure emotions in this context, but maybe we can discover which one of these is suffering more and how we can help them, because it's very contextual then.
Yeah, I wonder if there are two ways to look at this. So one way is obviously thinking about the fact that necessity entrepreneurs often are in survival mode and they've got everything on the line, and therefore it should be more stressful. You've got much more to lose. On the other hand, however, in our research on entrepreneurial disappointment, a paper called Breaking Down, we found that entrepreneurs were experiencing disappointment, which was related to depression, when they achieved objective success, because that success was not their idea of success. That they're not the next Steve Jobs. They might be making a profit, but it's not as much as they had hoped for, or the lifestyle of being an entrepreneur is certainly not what they had signed up for. So therefore, I think there are two things. One is, how high are we setting expectations? Because if that bar at the top, our expectation bar, is so high, we're never going to reach it. Whereas the other one is, what kind of stresses are upon us externally. But I really do think that people who are just trying to achieve success in the commercial world or even in social entrepreneurship, they can be their own worst enemy. That often we can put such high expectations on our own achievements that alone can work against us. What do you think, Kaitlin?
I think it's a great question, and I think Amanda gave a wonderful answer that I will not even try to add on to. I think she's really kind of said it all.
Amanda, regarding what you said, yes, there is this social desirability and lifestyle that we're dreaming of, something that we want to achieve, but we are not moving out of necessity. this could be really a big pain if we're not going to achieve it. So it needs to be really measured and researched to discover maybe those entrepreneurs who are just moving out of necessity and creating small ventures just to feed their families, they are not experiencing as much expectations. They don't set huge expectations, and they are very content. They do what they want with more contentment. I don't know, but yeah, we need to look at it.
Well, one thing's for sure, Maha, I think you got right when you said this is an area, there's almost no research. As far as I know, it sounds like Amanda too, and Kaitlin haven't really seen research. It sounds like a wide open area for research to give answers to these questions, but then also to equip therapeutic practitioners like yourself to actually start to equip these entrepreneurs to be able to deal with this. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I have a final thought, which is if we're to make progress in this area, I think we can learn from the failures of the field of psychology in the past, which is we shouldn't undersell the science behind this. And I think we need to come at recovery interventions and even emotional fitness interventions in a scientific manner, that we should try and establish a body of robust clinical trials that acknowledge the heterogeneity that exist in entrepreneurial populations, and try and build scientific understanding about this and about when it works and when it doesn't. So therefore we can really make an impact and come at it with all the insight that we need, specifically by using randomized control trials and clinical approaches.
It's a really good point. It's a really good point.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, and in that body of research, I would love also if people start diving into the business case for this as well, so that we're able to really make that argument in practice that this is why you should care. And if you're not able to get buy-in just for yourself right now, get buy-in for the success of your business, because I think emotions matter. They drive behavior, they drive successful outcomes, both for the person as well as for the business. And so let's kind of just start this emotional revolution where we start really educating people on the importance and getting people excited that this is another path forward to having successful outcomes and like kind of feeling empowered to take control in this way.
Yeah, I like that very much. I always wonder if being too concerned about positive emotions, however, just to play devil's advocate here for a second, is hugely problematic. When people chase positive emotions, they're almost guaranteed to experience more negative emotions, because positive emotions are elusive. You can't experience them. Once we can change the way we think about negative emotions, I think that's the power as well. So I would try and just temper this with a side of let's not be afraid to experience negative emotions. I loved Maha's approach of trying to normalize the negative emotional experience of entrepreneurship, because I think by normalizing it, it changes our conversation with those negative emotions. It changes it from being something that we shouldn't experience and something that's dangerous to something that's normal. And it's not me, it's entrepreneurship. This is totally this pit of death, you know, that you go into. That's a normal thing. It's got a J curve. So I wonder if that's just something we should temper that conversation with as well.
You know, they did, or they do, or they used to, at least, Amanda, in marathon running at mile 18, they'd say, you hit the wall. So that when you really felt terrible, they'd say, this is the way everybody feels, exactly what you say. Didn't keep you from feeling terrible, but misery loves company.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because my intention was not to say we have to live in that high energy, positive, quadrant of emotions. I think that, and sometimes I forget, because I was very lucky. My mother was a child psychologist. She's retired now, where no emotions have ever been off the table, right? So positive, negative, high energy, low energy, all emotions are information for us. And you're absolutely right, is that I lost my train of thought, but I'm glad you brought that up because we should not be trying to sell that the whole goal with emotional intelligence is to live in that high energy positive quadrant of the emotional spectrum. It's about recognizing wherever you are and recognizing that there's information in that emotion that you can then put into practice for yourself.
Absolutely. Beautifully said.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the emotional intelligence.
Yeah, that's emotional intelligence. Well, okay, let's, anybody have any thoughts that they want to share before we say goodbye? Let's call this session not finished, but I'm sure we will continue in other venues, other events. We will make progress in our thinking and our research in our practice and therapy. But thanks very much to 3 fantastic thought leaders, to Amanda Williamson, Kaitlin Capobianco, and to Maha Aly. Thanks to all 3 of you for making this really a wonderful session. I just enjoyed listening to you very much. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So much.